Hello, amazing parents and caretakers, and welcome to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. I'm your family empowerment coach, Celia Kibler. I'm a mom of a blended family of 5 kids. I'm a grandma of 9 kids, an author, a teacher, a speaker, and a consultant with over 40 years of training and real-life parenting experience. I'm here to offer you practical, doable tips, strategies, and techniques that will pump up your parenting skills and create peace, love, and laughter throughout your family. In addition, I'll be interviewing some great humans that are on a mission to make your life a better, happier, and healthier life. So let's not waste any time and get started with the next episode of the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. Thanks for listening. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. Guys, you're going to love this podcast because we have an expert in relationships. He is going to give you the magic that you've always wanted in your relationship. That's what his book's all about. That's what he's all about. And I want to introduce you to Raffi Bilek. Did I say that right? Yes.
You got that right.
And he is a relationship Sherpa. This is his shtick. He's like all about making your relationship the best he can be. He is the author of Couples Communication Handbook, the skills you never learned for the marriage you always wanted. So this is like good stuff. I hope you have a pen, you have a paper, a pen and a paper. You take notes, do that magic stuff so that you can start taking some of his advice into action today. So welcome, Raffi. It's good to have you here.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So Raffi, if you would first tell everybody how they can reach you so that anyone that has to leave early doesn't miss that information, and how you got started in this, how it did helping couples become your passion.
Sure. Okay. So I am at thecommunicationbook.com. If you head to thecommunicationbook.com, you'll find info about the book and how to get it. And the first 2 chapters are there for free. You can download the PDF or the audio and get a taste of it, so you see how wonderful it is and how worthwhile it is to get the rest of the book. So check me out there. So how did I get into this? Boy, I started my illustrious social work career about 15 years ago, and just kind of took what came my way. I did an internship at a place for chronically mentally ill folks. I worked in some private practices and community mental health agencies, just sort of seeing, everyone and everything, and trying to provide some of the, therapeutic help that I was trained to give. And I just found that more and more, I really liked working with the couples, and I thought that I had a lot more to offer them, and it just really jived with me. So, I still see people with anxiety and, depression, whatever mental concerns they may have. But really, my passion is working with people and their relationships, whether I'm working with an individual to help them figure out what's going on in their life that they can do better for their relationship, or working with a couple to help them shore things up, figure out how to stop fighting, how to feel connected, all those kind of things. And it just really speaks to me. So that's what I've been exclusively focusing on for probably over a decade now.
That's so great. And I know when I can help a family and I can help parents and, make that life a happier home, more peace, more calm, like it's like the best. There's like,
Yes.
It's not even work because it's so rewarding.
Yeah. And I just think that, people, they underestimate how much that kind of thing influences their overall happiness, right? Far more than the right job, or the right amount of money. If your relationships are in order and your marriage is doing well, it's a different life.
Exactly. And sadly, I feel sadly, and I don't know how you think about this, but sadly, I feel like in society, we prioritize the wrong things. We do
Yeah.
prioritize the job. We do prioritize the car, the salary, what we're doing. And yet so many people go home and they hate their relationships. They're stressed out with their kids and they lead this daily life of stress and chaos. And yet,
And
if they try to help themselves, they feel like, oh, I shouldn't reach for help.
yeah, and they a lot of people have bought into this myth of our society that if you just, you make it to a certain income bracket or a certain stage in your career, then you'll be happy, and then you'll be able to relax and really, spend time with the kids and work on the marriage. And it doesn't really work that way. There's no, I've never met anybody who said, you know what, yeah, yeah, I've got enough money now. I think I'll stop. I mean, look, you have the
Right.
richest people in the world who are still going, right? And among which in the past couple of years have there have been divorces among literally the top richest people in the world. And it's nice that they're the richest people in the world. I can't imagine they're all that happy about
Yeah.
the breakup of their family.
Yeah. And often because of, I mean, not to say there aren't great people who are also wealthy, but
Sure.
there is a strong focus on money. They do things to make more money.
Right.
And so if your focus is on money, your focus is not necessarily on your relationship.
Yeah.
And, it takes second fiddle, whatever that quote is, plays second fiddle to, that direction of how much money can I make? How much can I, you know, how many toys can I win?
Right. And unfortunately, that does not really lead to the lifetime happiness that people are looking for, which is why you get so many people, in this midlife stage where they kind of wonder, is this it? Is this all I'm going for? There's a sense of emptiness, which you don't really get that with people who have great marriages and great parenting and great kids and their families are happy. And they go, yeah, is this all there is? Like, aren't I supposed to be making millions? I haven't seen a lot of clients like that, but I have seen a lot of clients successful professionally, but still just not feeling it and not feeling happy. And I just think, again, like you said, there's nothing wrong with making money. And I put a lot of work into supporting my family, but that is the means and not the end.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And when people die, do they die going, oh, I'm so sorry I won't be able to go to work today, Or do they die going, oh, I really would love to see my daughter, my wife, my husband,
Yeah.
my, my
Right.
my grandchildren just one more time.
Hmm.
And I it's it's interesting though when we talk about therapy or we talk about getting help, even, getting help prior to the marriage. I just had a client, well, they're a client now, that reached out and they want help before they get married, which I
Yeah,
think is brilliant because
absolutely.
then you're absolutely setting yourself up for success. You're learning how to communicate. And so many people are like, well, you know, there's nothing wrong with me. Why do I need therapy? And often marriages end up in this personality conflict and this ego world. Like, not my fault. It's not my fault. How do you help people out of that?
Um, yeah, I mean, people who come in hoping that I'm going to change their spouse usually don't get very far, right? Everybody has their own responsibility. Everyone has something that they need to be doing here. And getting people to take charge of their part of the picture, whether this is my fault or not my fault, it's like I'm sure you tell your kids, I don't care who spilled it. I asked you to clean it up, right? So I don't
Exactly.
care whose fault it is that there's an argument in this marriage. You both have a responsibility to do something different. And if you're waiting for your partner to jump in and solve the problem, you might be waiting for a long time.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think, you hit the nail on the head when you say it's responsibility. I mean, there's two people, two different perspectives, two different thoughts and values and, ways they do things. But when you make a marriage, you want to come together. You want to listen to each other. You want to listen to the perspective that you may or may not agree with and understand that that person has valid reasons why they feel the way they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And open up, talking, communication, talk to each other without screaming and yelling and calmly listen. Being a good listener, I think, is such a big part of couples and kids and families and really recognizing that there's another person in your life and they
Yeah.
deserve to be heard.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that goes for spouses and for children and for everybody in your life.
I almost feel like, and I don't know if you agree, that often, although there are a lot of contributors to, you know, relationships having difficult times, financial, religion, education, could be like a million things, kids. But I often feel like in most relationships, it's when they get to the point where they're not appreciated and somebody isn't like, they get to that like roommate stage where, you know, they're just passing in the night and they're not talking to each other and they're not appreciating the effort that either one is putting into it. How do
Yeah,
you
for
feel
sure.
about
That
that?
is a hazard of long-term relationships. Yeah.
And how do you help them to, remedy that?
I mean, I think often the cases are so different. Like, how do we get here? For some people, they just got sick of fighting, and so they shut down. But some people they never really fought. They in fact, the opposite. They just wouldn't bring up issues. They would just, sort of stuff it, shove it under the rug, and that doesn't help either because, avoiding the problems just means that they build up, and eventually, things calcify, and we don't have a close relationship anymore. So it really depends where they're coming from. Helping people to open up and talk about the issues, but to talk about it in a way that doesn't mean that we're always fighting and that doesn't come off harsh and that doesn't cause the problem to be worse. There are going to be problems and frictions in every relationship, and being able to talk about those effectively in a way that leaves us feeling connected is really key to making sure the long-term relationship, stays vital and vibrant for the long term.
And that's a great segue into your book. So your book is all about, it's a handbook for
For couples
communication.
communication, that's what it
So
is.
how does referring to this book, reading this book, both of you reading this book, because I hope you both realize, both people, we're not talking to them, that is a couple, realize that the problem of miscommunication is not just, like you said, one problem. It's not me against you, it's us against the problem.
Right. And I think people often take that approach when it comes to anger. They think if I'm angry at you or you're angry at me, there's a problem. And I tell people anger is not against the relationship. Anger is a part of the relationship. And the question is how you deal with that. We are going to get angry at each other. And that's not a sign that there's a problem in our relationship. If I can be angry at you and express that, and we can discuss that in a way that is effective and that leaves us feeling connected, that's great. We've come through something together, right? And couples that go through difficult things together. I mean, you know this from your average Hollywood movie where these two people go through some watershed moment and they're rescued and all, so it's a bonding experience. Couples who go through difficult things bond. And the things that we bring to each other, they're difficult and they bond us. If we avoid that and we try not to talk about it or avoid it or just get rid of the problem as quickly as possible, we're missing the opportunity to work together and to build a relationship that is solid.
Exactly. Well, and it's like what you said, if you just take something that's bothering you and you bury it, and you're like, well, you know, and that comes from even childhood, avoiding the conflict, not wanting to get into an argument. But if you do that, it doesn't go away. It lives there. It stews. It becomes a monster. It'll affect you 20
It'll
years
come
down
back.
the
It'll come
road.
back to bite you.
Yeah. I remember with my first marriage, I brought up something when we went through marriage counseling that happened 15 years earlier. And
Yeah.
in my husband's defense, my ex husband's defense, what was he supposed to do about it? It happened 15 years ago. But for 15 years, because I never talked about it, it lived within me.
Yep. And the truth is, those things can be resolved. And I do talk to people about things that happened a long time ago. Often, once we do start to talk about it in a way that leaves us feeling connected, we can put that down and put it aside and move forward. But those hurts and those pains that we have caused each other that we never talked about, they do stick around, and you don't forget them. And it can be hard to move on until we process it well.
And often it just builds up to resentment. And then that's really difficult in a
100%.
relationship.
100%.
Um, so tell me how couples can use your book to help build a calm, constructive, communication system for themselves?
Yeah, so going through it, it gives you a lot of what you need. Obviously, no book can cover every circumstance and situation, but the goal is to help you build a system where whatever comes up, you know how to talk about it. And the first and most important thing I tell people, don't do it now. Now is not the time. Whatever just happened, that's not the time to talk about it because you're worked up, you're irritated, and you're going to run in charging, and it's going to go poorly. And I think that if people would just, I mean, I've worked with a lot of people who are great at communication and wonderful, mature people, and we all turn into nutcases in that one moment where something happens. If you ever stub your toe and you want to start yelling at the person next to you, why'd you leave that? I mean, it has nothing to
Right.
do with them.
Right.
And yet, in that, you know, that moment when you stub your toe, everything seems terrible and wrong. And okay, so it's the same thing when you come home and your spouse finished the last of the orange juice and put the empty carton back and you're so irritated. That's not the time to deal with it. It's not an emergency. If people would just wait and, chill, calm down a little bit and deal with it later, it would go much more smoothly. So that's the first thing I tell people, because whatever we work on, whatever skills you get to communicate, they're going to go right out the window if you're in your angry mode. The same way, if we're dealing with somebody who's drunk, that is not a good time to talk to them. Their
Right.
brain is working differently. It's the same thing here. When you are really worked up, your brain is working differently. You cannot make good decisions. That's not the time to deal with it.
Hi, this is Celia, your host and family and relationship empowerment coach, and mom and grandma, here to take a break from this podcast to give you a special opportunity. As parents, we all have those moments. The pressure builds up, the noise gets too much, and before we know it, we're raising our voices higher than we ever intended. But what if there was a better way? Introducing 21 Days to Stop Yelling at Your Kids, a revolutionary program designed to help you communicate with your children without yelling. Imagine a home filled with understanding and respect, where your words have impact without the need to raise your voice. Created through my over 40 years of experience, this course offers you practical, easy to implement strategies that work in real life. You'll learn through interactive lessons, engaging exercises, and a supportive community. No judgments, just guidance. Because being a parent doesn't have to mean you're perfect. It's about growing and it's about becoming intentional. In just 21 days, life will be calmer and more harmonious. What if you don't get the course? Where will you be in 21 days? Still feeling like a bad parent? I encourage you to join the millions of parents that I have helped who have found a new path to communication and connection. Visit quityelling.com to enroll in the 21 Days to Stop Yelling course today. And for our podcast listeners, use the code PODCAST for a 60% discount. Quityelling.com, because love speaks so much louder than yelling. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Absolutely. And, and I love that you bring that up because, my whole shtick is I help parents stop yelling at their children. And it's basically the same thing. It's basically like you going and screaming and yelling at them is only teaching them to scream and yell back. It's not constructive. You're not going to solve a problem. You will always make it worse. Yep. Always. Yep. And that is the time you walk away, you chill out, you relax. I even have a thing I teach parents, an acronym that I made up. That's called PEPA, not like Peppa Pig. So it's PEPA. So you throw the P for the pig away. Okay. And it just basically means pause, evaluate, plan, act. So if you can just pause, walk away, sit in your room, just, if you're had a bad day at work and you come in, like you said, and you stub your toe, and now that bad day of work is affecting your reaction to
Everything.
stubbing your toe. What's wrong? Why can't anybody in this house pick something up and you're screaming, you're yelling, you're raging, you're a crazy maniac? And, not that crazy maniac is like good therapy talk, but
Right.
it's real talk. And it's it is so important to get control over yourself. It's
Hmm.
people will go, well, I'm angry. I'm angry. And
You
when
should
I'm
be.
angry, I yell. Well, that is you making a conscious decision to yell. When I'm angry, I don't yell. So how can I handle that emotion and you can't is because you're in control to how you react. It's like the emotions aren't good or bad. There's not like
Just
here are the
out.
good emotions, here are the bad emotions. They're all just emotions.
Hmm.
It's how you react to those emotions
Yeah.
is what
And look, it
determines.
can be hard to put the kibosh on it and not yell in that moment. I understand. I totally understand the impulse to run in and start talking about it and fixing it and telling your kids off or telling your spouse off. I totally get it. I'm a human being, as surprising as that may be,
Exactly.
right? I have the same impulses, and I've learned over time to shut up because it just comes out better.
Right. Right. You're in control of you. You're not in control of anything else that happens around you. Like I always say, the secret to life is knowing that you are in total control of you.
Yep.
You are responsible for your actions, your reactions, and who you want to be is who you should be. And in couples, a lot, I know you run into it like I run into it. They'll be like, well, he did that, so I did it.
Yeah.
Well, did
It's
you
not going to
like
help
it
you.
when he did that? Why did you repeat it? So there's always that like back and forth. Like, oh, well, if he's going to do that, then I'm going to do that.
Yeah, that's not going to, it's like an eye for an eye leaves everybody blind, right? It's not going to get you very far.
Exactly. Exactly. So, what else does your book help couples with? And I'm assuming they get the book. You certainly hope that each of them read it. Or should they read it together?
Um, Definitely both of them reading it together is best. I think there's also a lot to be gained if only one person's going to read it. There are lots of couples where one person says, I have no problem, you have a problem, or we don't have a problem, or we don't need help, or whatever it might be. So, yeah, look, again, just the ability to stop and not deal with things in the moment will make a difference. But yeah, obviously, ideally, both of them can be doing that. And that's just, there's just the one chapter on like, okay, timing, right? Not right now. But then we get into, okay, so then what do you do? One of the reasons people have difficulty taking a break is because they have this fear that we're never going to talk about it if we don't do it now. And that can be true if you're just going to bury it afterwards. And what helps to avoid that is to have a mechanism that you can turn to. Okay, when we are calm, we will do this. And there is a whole process laid out for having a conversation that will work well. Of course, it's not just tactical. It's not just say this, do this. There's some mindsets involved. So the next important mindset that I tell people is that you have to divide the conversation into two parts. First, you're going to explore the problem, and only afterwards will you solve the problem. You cannot solve a problem that you don't understand. And yet we do that all the time. Oh, you're mad about XYZ. Great. Well, let's try to fix it with this. But you know what? It's a lot more than the fact that you left the orange juice in the fridge. The orange juice in the empty box in the fridge is not the problem. The problem is that you don't listen to me and I feel unloved and I feel unappreciated and I work really hard and I just can't do it anymore. And there's all these things under it that we have to understand before we figure out what to do about the problem. So when we start talking about the issue, drop the problem solving. We are not going to fix this in this conversation. If we totally agree and leave that aside, we are not walking away from this conversation with a solution, then we can start to understand what's actually going on and we can make a lot of headway.
Yeah, that's such good advice. Such good advice. I hope you guys wrote that down. But there's so many things that appear in life that are merely symptoms of the core problem going on. And
Mm-hmm.
if you take away, put a band-aid on that symptom, okay, we have cuts all over our arms. So we'll put Band-Aids on them, but after those heal up, we're going to go back in those rose bushes and we're going to come back out with cuts all over our arms. So maybe that bush isn't the best place to go, but there's so much dysfunction because people don't address
Right.
the
That's why
core.
people think that they've tried solving the problem. They've tried this, that, the other, and the problem keeps coming back is because there's other things going on. The problem is not the empty orange juice box. We all know what to do about
Right.
that. Go get another one. That's
Right.
not the problem. The problem is all the messaging that's going on underneath it that hurts. And when we don't look at that, of course, that whatever solution we're going to come up with will be insufficient. It won't work.
Right. And it's so true. And the problem will always follow you.
Yeah.
People go, okay, I need a new house. So let's go get a new house. We'll feel so much better if we're in a new house or whatever. And then you go to the new house and it's the same stuff. Why? Because
Doesn't change.
you and your problems went to the new house.
Hmm.
It's going to move along with you until you resolve it. But the good news is once you really do talk about it and listen, humans have this innate way of listening. And the way we listen is we plot our rebuttal. So you're
Yeah.
not really listening. You're plotting your rebuttal. You've missed half of the information and you can't get what's really going on.
Right. And you're turning it into some kind of competition or debate. That is not collaborative. Now it's you against your spouse or you against your child or whoever it is. And that's not going to get us much farther. Even if you happen to win that argument, you're still adversarial with each other. And that doesn't make for a very good relationship.
Yep. You got to be on a team. You got to be on the same page. You have to understand you may not agree. It doesn't
Right.
mean you have to agree with
Absolutely
everything.
not. Right.
It just
People don't.
means that you understand each other and you
Right.
respect each other and trust each other. Respect and trust, in my eyes, are like the basis of every relationship. Every relationship.
Yeah. And if it's all about who's right and who's going to win, we probably don't have a lot of that.
Exactly. So, anyway, Rafi, thank you for all this information in a very short amount of time. Uh, the book is Couples Communication Handbook, the skills you never learned for the marriage you've always wanted. So, get it. And it's at vcommunicationbook.com. Does it?
Thecommunicationbook.com. You can find it for sale on Amazon, of course, but if you Google it, but if you go to thecommunicationbook.com, it'll link it there. You can get the first two chapters for free and see the additional stuff I've written. There's a blog there with additional information, and I'm answering some questions that people have about the book, and so there's lots of useful stuff over there.
So kind of you to release two chapters. So, I mean, what do you have to lose? Go to thecommunicationbook.com. Get the start somewhere. If you're like, I don't even know where to start, that's a pretty good place to start.
First two
You could
chapters is a great place
download.
to start.
There you go. But you got to get started. You could let this go on and on and on, and eventually you will probably destroy the relationship you have, or you can calmly talk to your spouse, your partner, whoever it is, and say, I think I'm feeling like it's time that we get a little help, a little
Yeah.
assistance. I found this great book. You don't even have to go to see Rafi, who is the founder of the Baltimore Therapy Center. But if you're not in Baltimore, you can start with this book because
Yeah.
so often people are like, where are we going to start? Well, now you have a place.
People do reach out to me, and I do see people online from all over the place. So
Oh, good. Sorry, I misinformation. Baltimore
that's all right.
Therapy Center.
Yeah, I mean that's my local gig. But I do see people online. People contact me through the book website, and I do think people should start with the book. But if they need extra help or have read the book or whatever, I definitely am available for individual consultations.
Yep. And often the consultations that you have privately move you forward a little faster.
Yeah.
But
And also, look, there's only so much a book can do. It's a great book and it's
right,
helpful. And I think it'll be great for a lot of people. And then there are people who need some extra help applying it or dealing with, a long history or, big issues. So, definitely there to help out people however they need.
fabulous. Well, thank you for being here, Rafi. I appreciate your time. Is there one more thing? I know we've given them a lot of information. I hope you people took notes. I hope you shared this out with friends because I know you have friends that also don't have, that are having difficulty in their relationship. Is there one more piece of advice you would like to give our listeners before we go?
I just want to reiterate the same thing. Don't do it now. Honestly, take a break. If something's bothering you, if you're in a conversation and it's going sideways, take a break. You will be much better off for it. That's what I tell people. If there's one thing you take from the book, there's lots of good stuff and communication techniques, but if you take one thing, just don't do it now. Do it later.
Excellent advice. And please listen. Please walk away. Don't let your ego get in the way of a solution.
Yeah.
So thank you, Raffi. Go to thecommunicationbook.com. Check out the book, download the free chapters, start there. Decide when you're listening to this, you know what? This has inspired me. Because you can make it work. And won't you be so much happier in a relationship where the two of you respect and trust and love each other and listen to each other than what's going on right now? So
Totally
thank you, Raffi.
Thank you so much for having me, Celia.
And to all of you, again, check out thecommunicationbook.com. If you need help, reach out to Raffi, reach out to me. We're all here to help you. And asking for help is a sign of courage. Nothing to feel shameful about. You're making your life better, and you're making the lives better of the people that mean the most to you. So reach out. As always, my friends, I wish you days filled with peace, love, tons of laughter. Don't forget to laugh. It's very important. It's the best medicine. Stuff is funny. Be willing to laugh at it. And I'll see you here next time on the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. If this episode was helpful to you, please share it with a friend and leave us a review that will help others. Wonder why kids don't come with a manual? Well, wonder no more, because I wrote you one, and it's just won a wonderful Mom's Choice Award. Go to celiasbooks.com and buy your copy of Raising Happy Toddlers, as well as my children's books. I appreciate you being part of my mission to help 10 million parents stop yelling at their kids. Please be intentional and hug on those kids of yours. See you at the next episode.